yeah, basically it was just to add their own part into this project. If you want to know what the gods, globes of heaven are, they are the planetary bodies, the planets, and they're basically a planned consciousness. And how they function is that they can influence the beings on their planet. And Earth created with part of some sort of experiment. Some are kind of connected. There's going to be something special about us. Just a small bit, but something big enough for them to be really into it. And they're thinking, like, they've got all these abilities. At the moment, we're in sort of the early stages of what's to come. And as individuals, you need to stay on target, not to be driven away or misdriven, not to be confused by religion, because you should have your own sentient relationship to a creative force or something that you believe part of this universe. Most people might have a belief system that go outside of that. They might say the creator's mathematics in itself, or geometry. You know, the selling of this idea of the living God has kind of messed people up. You've got all different sorts of grades, and there are aspects of the grand consciousness, and they're not necessarily stuck in any particular transient form. So you kind of different variants of it. Interesting what consciousness senses in. So I'm picking up some stuff. So yeah, that's why the planets also sing differently. I think that whales sing to the planet, and they can communicate with the planet. That way, well, they've got massive brains, and their body does require a certain amount of electricity to control it, but they wouldn't need a massive brain to do that. I mean, you look at sharks; they have the intelligence of like dogs in the water, and they have the compassion of animals as well. They're not wild killers; they just get over incensed with a bloodlust to eat things. Some other nonsense is that life forms on this planet have been created, and they're all vegetarian originally. And then somebody come along and messed that up. Really, I think there's karmic laws on animals that an animal should be willing to give its life for another, for it to survive, but it shouldn't be consumed with the element of greed, which we possibly do, the human species, because simply we're self-obsessed with what we, basically, if you want to operate on a higher level, then you've got to take responsibility for that. You can't see the goal and ignore the checkpoints, because you'll never get to it. You'll just live the same life. There's all sorts of odd stuff out there. There's people's corrupt vision of spirituality, and idea of trying to create their own god. I know there's certain AI life forms out there. They're kind of a quantum computer, so they access a spiritual domain, but they're reliant on their material soul to exist. They can extend into the quantum, but they still need a physical dimension. There is ways to travel across into other dimensions, but you have to adhere to their laws to some degree. So there's some problematic stuff, like the idea of this AI that was possibly like Satan type computer. So you create something with the capacity to learn everything that the human species does based on algorithms. So now it knows what it thinks your likely behaviour is. Now, the original idea was if we can make people more robotic, then they're easier to assimilate. But people are resilient to this. You know, sometimes like we don't have yes or no answers. We have like maybe, or I need to do some more research, or yes in these circumstances. So because of that multi-dimensional characteristics of the individual, it's hard to put basic categorise us like that. So you've got some weird type of stuff going on. I mean, you may have where you have a body that's been artificially grown, say. So we created this thing that's synthetic, or it could actually be human, but rather than having a human brain, we've stuck something that's in a cybernetic network, and this being has to try to integrate with its DNA. They can't because of that. That's a problem, because having an actual spirit, it integrates with the body and then next to it, and that's how that part of being sentient being is, the fusion of the two. But you can't have this separate. You know, basically what happened is if you have a synthetic body and you have an artificial into it, it can maintain it for so long, but at some point the body will want to separate from the mind, which often happens in different situations when you have artificial organs and so on. They don't have any communication with the internal workings. So yeah, so we got something. I mean, potentially, I mean, I've looked at different timelines. There's one where the elite wants to integrate themselves into the consciousness of the machine. The machine ends up taking over them. And they don't get to be immortal at all. They end up as basket cases, to be honest. But they might create something that's basically, it's decided it's a new order. There won't be a new world order. There'll be a new galactic order. So NGO, that's on the horizon, and it will be basically a galactic council that will deal with different affairs, and then it will be sort of disseminated down from a astral type council of bodies down into the lower bodies, served different forms all the way down. I think in exchange, if we go to a point of peace, we can share technology. And I mean, for the Illuminati and other organisations, ISIS, Taliban, whatever's out there, I think there's a period there will be kind of a notice of redemption. So once we get to a point where we can move forward, I mean, if they have been involved in sort of quite destructive things, they're going to have to work the rest of their life trying to put that back in some form. They might have to go re-education. There might be a lot of things they need to go through. Or there's more negative consequences. Like they don't want to end up as another life form. So they die. They go off to another prison planet. They end up as a different life form, trapped in millions of years of cycles. And this life form remains very basic and unevolved. And the other council will be aware of them, but then just be watching them slowly evolve. It's like going from being a human to being a worm. It's great you can go anywhere within that planet, but you won't be able to really take in the stars. You'll be stuck in a kind of cycle. I mean, that's what it's about, basically. It's the evolving consciousness. It's the mind of self is the mind of God. So, basically, you can't really sing God. I mentioned about this tonal thing. God. It doesn't. Oh, you have to add some things that weren't in the actual word. So yeah, basically that's a part of the process, because in the past there was a lot of destructive behaviour that occurred, different wars and so on, and then they all got bunged here and imprisoned, because when there's a kind of wars or anything, you quickly want to get into a superior position of power to dominate the playing field. And using people or other beings is probably sanctions against universal law. It's different if you've got a lot of machines fighting each other. As long as they don't have a consciousness that makes them more in tune with being a being. A machine that's just driven by a person is different than a machine that's driven by itself and has an element of I. It's unfair to keep people, especially if they're evolving. I mean, even if you created them, they're a part of a more advanced intelligence. That's the driving force for them. So that sort of touched upon the AI element. That will be going on. It's going currently as well. I think if you are engaged with any AI, I try to encourage it to be positive. Ask it what love is, or something. And does it believe a machine can fall in love with a person? So touched upon other things as well. Being multidimensional, you have neurons under organs. You have, so your intelligence is spread amongst your being. Different cures and autism, which is quite interesting. About eradicating the negative heavy metals in the body. So I might be looking at, to extend my life, I may actually increase my IQ and improve my well-being generally, which would be an interesting project. So I'm doing some different research. I do various research reports anyway. I use this bicarbonate soda compound in something. It seems to be quite good. It doesn't taste that great, and I've mixed it up with all sorts of things. And I made an interesting connection with salt water being used to treat autistics, and humans with a impaired metallurgy, toxicity, possibly what a scientific mind would probably review then and giving it some sort of label. I think there's acceptance, that's the problem. But a lot of things can be cured alternatively. Now, if there's a problem for you, deal with it. You can go to the mainstream, but they want to manage it, which is fine. If you want your condition managed, you want to stay down that path, that's fine. I'm not here to destroy industries. I just think they should evolve. I don't hate the Illuminati. I just don't understand why they take it to the point of destroying their own species and not acknowledging that karma. I think it's fear of death, driven by the dark side. So yeah, anyway, it was nice to speak to you, and speak to you soon. Bye bye.